Yo, what's up everybody? Welcome back to Unscripted for another Call of Duty Top 5 Countdown video. In today's video, we are counting down who I feel are the 5 best players from the LA Thieves home series over the weekend, and as always, we are doing things off the script. Before we hop into the countdown, as always, don't forget to leave a like down below if you enjoy the video. Leave a comment as well with your thoughts on this top 5, and subscribe to the channel as well if you want to see more videos like this one and other Call of Duty CDL breakdowns in the future from me. I appreciate all of that. It does mean a lot to me as we grow this channel, and let's jump right into the countdown. So, we have some honorable mentions on screen, and some of them you might think, okay, how are these guys not in the top 5? And the same as I did for the Florida home series, I had the same rule, only one player from each team, so that is why I like Simp and Celium. Those guys have very strong cases as top 5 players from this event. Same with Insight, same with Scump, but all of these guys have a teammate on the list instead, so I edge their teammates over them, which we'll talk about when we get to those guys, but that is the reason for those guys being honorable mentions instead of maybe in the top 5. And then Afro just missed the cut. I think he had a good series against LAG, like a really good series. He was phenomenal in that series, but he did struggle pretty bad against New York, and I think overall he just missed the cut. He was probably number 6, again, applying the one player per team rule. Again, strong series against LA, but not a great series against New York, so that just kept him out. Still a very good event from him, though, and promising signs of his slaying power for sure for London moving into the future. So these are the 5 honorable mentions, and let's get into the top 5. First off, sorry for the little bit of a blurry picture. There's not many pictures of him out there, but we have Hydra. Really good event from him, despite New York going 1-1. They did lose to Toronto. They will be the 2 seed in their group instead of the 1 seed. But regardless, you see the numbers. They speak for themselves from Hydra. Overall, really solid performances from him at this event. I mean, hardpoint, we know how good he is. He is the #1 hardpoint KD in the league since he has joined, since the start of Stage 3. It's not really a surprise why New York has such success in hardpoint. We know they're pretty much the best hardpoint team since he joined the team. He, of course, is a big reason for that, along with Mac. Those two have been a very good hardpoint duo for this team, but he didn't just do it in hardpoint. I mean, a strong search and destroy KD as well. Only 2 maps. So it's not a huge sample size. You know, he only had 2 maps for all these modes because they had a 3-0 win and a 3-0 loss. So not a large sample size, but I mean, nobody has a large sample size. It's just one event. But regardless, he played great. They were able to go 1-1 on the weekend. They were looking for that 2-0 and get that 1 seed moving into the major. Of course, that's not going to happen. But now, as we move to the major, I think there's more pressure on Hydra. We know officially now that ASIM almost certainly will not be making the major because of being stuck in Canada. So Hydra will be playing with we don't know who as his SMG duo, but he will have to step up and keep playing the way he is and maybe even be a little bit better if they want a chance at placing top 2, 3, or even winning this event. So a little bit of pressure on the rookie, but for now he's been playing great. Another great event for him at the LA Thieves home series, and he comes in at number 5 on this list. Moving on, we have Octane, 1-1. I mean, that's big for Seattle. You see that 1-1 down there. That is big because that was their only win of the stage. It was their first win in like 10 matches, and it came against Optic. So impressive stuff from Octane. I mean, his numbers were good. There were nothing insane for this event, but also it's more the fact that he carried against Optic. He was the only player on his team positive across the entire series, and he was positive by a lot. He was just backpacking on all the modes, every single map it seemed against Optic. He played phenomenal. He was by far the biggest win for their 3-2 victory, or he's the biggest reason for their 3-2 win over Optic. You could even say he was probably the only reason for their 3-2 win over Optic. He didn't play great against Paris in their loss. I mean, he played okay. Gunless was probably the best player from the team on that series, but still a good event from Octane. You know, he's always going to have a high KD because he has a really good shot. He's a main AR and he plays a little bit slower, so you can't just look at the KD when it comes to Octane, but you know, if you look beyond that, he still had a really good event. Like I said, that Optic series especially is what gets him on this list. He's been really good at search recently, which might sound weird if you haven't watched Call of Duty since like Black Ops 4, even before then, when he was really just a respawn player. But he's been great at search, great overall for Seattle, and definitely is, if they're going to have any kind of success moving into this major on LAN, I almost have to think he will be the reason for it. I think they have a chance to maybe sneak into the top 8. They're playing a little bit better lately, and if they do, it will be definitely thanks to Octane. So for now, we have him as the number 4 player from the LA Thieves home series. We are into the top 3. We have a Beezy. So just based on performance, I think Beezy has a strong argument for number 1, but they did only play 1 series. It was against Minnesota, who by no means is a bad team, but not a top team either. And it's mostly just because the guys ahead of him both played 2 series, but I mean that he was great. You can't deny that. Look at the numbers. 4.0 KD in Search and Destroy in the 1 map he played. Only a 1.07 over 2 hard points, but again, as fast as he plays, being the entry sub, putting the most pressure on the map, he's not going to have super high KD. And then the control, he played really well as well. Even though FaZe were not able to close out that control, he played phenomenally. He was really keeping them in that control. Even though they couldn't get the win over Minnesota, he was really good. It seemed like he was just constantly on a streak. 2, 3, 3 pieces, clearing out points, doing whatever he could. It just wasn't quite enough in the end, but definitely not his fault either. He had a really good series against Minnesota. In my opinion, he's the best player in the world. I think he should be the #1 candidate for MVP. I know some would say simp. I think everybody agrees they are the top 2. It just depends what you value a little bit more. I like Beezy's pressure he puts on the map. He has a lot of aggression. He gets a lot of kills and just causes a lot of problems. And he did more of that against Minnesota. He is just so good. There's only so many ways you can describe this guy. And I have him at #3. And like I said, if they had played 2 series, he probably would have done the same exact thing over 2 series. And then he probably would have been the #1 player. But he comes in at #3. But again, I think top 1 in the MVP discussion and just top 1 best player in the world is a Beezy. #2, we have Dashie. I was going back and forth between Dashie and Scump because both played really well for Optic this weekend, but the reason I went with Dashie was because he did play better in the series against Seattle. Even though it was a loss, it was, not because of him. He had like a 1.3 something in that series. I mean, he played really well, even though Optic couldn't get the win. Scump had probably slightly better numbers against LA Thieves, but I mean, they all had good numbers. You saw how lopsided that series was. Everybody's going to put up numbers when that's the case. I mean, they were like 80-something kills positive over 3 maps as a team against LA Thieves, so everybody played well. Can't really hold that series against anybody or give anybody extra credit for it because they all slayed out of their minds. But for the event, Dashie was strong. 1.34, it seems like it's par for the course with him. 1.44 in hard points. He has been great in respawns all year. I think most of he's been inconsistent a little bit, but I think a lot of that is in search. I mean, he does have bad maps overall, but hard point and control has been really solid all season long, at least in terms of KD and just in his slaying power. You might argue maybe he makes the wrong situational plays sometimes, but in terms of slaying, he has been great in the respawn. Search, KD was a little bit lower, but it is what it is. I mean, a really good event from Dashie. Like I said, his performance against Seattle in the loss is the reason he gets the edge over Scumpy here. I think Scump was better against LA Thieves, but Dashie was most certainly their best player against Seattle, and even though they couldn't get the win, he was playing very well. So Dashie, a guy where if he stays consistent and he keeps slaying like this heading into the major, they are definitely a dangerous team, and if he falls apart, they might fall apart. So a little bit of pressure on Dashie because of his inconsistencies, but we saw the good side of him at the LA Thieves home series, and hopefully we can see that from him moving forward. I know Optic fans definitely are cheering for him to keep playing this well because it will definitely bring good results for his team. And finally, #1, we have Cammy. So it's weird because when I was thinking of this list, I wasn't even sure I was going to include Cammy as his team's representative because Insight had better numbers over the course of the weekend. But I went with Cammy, and here's why. They were 2-0 on the event, which is why he's #1. I thought that they're the only 2-0 team that had a really top player. I think they're the only 2-0 team, period, from the event. So that's why I wanted them in here. And also, the reason I went with him over Insight was because even though he had worse numbers, his better performance was against New York, whereas Insight racked up a lot of his stats against LAG. Cammy, I think, only had like a 1.0 against LAG, but he really came to play when it mattered most against New York in that bigger match of the day for the 1 seed in their group, and he played really well. I mean, he was phenomenal in search all weekend, a 1.46, very good from him in search. Consistent in the respawns, good in all modes. That has been Cammy's MO all year long. I was talking earlier about how FaZe and Simp are probably the 2 leaders in the MVP discussion. I mean, definitely the 2 leaders. Beyond that, you can talk about the rest of the FaZe guys, but then you start getting into Cammy, Insight, Hydra, in my opinion. I think right now Cammy or Insight, but I will lead towards Cammy, probably the top non-FaZe player in the MVP discussion. He's been super great all season long. He was arguably a top 5 player in Stage 1, a little bit of a downstage in Stage 2, back in the top 6 to 8 range in Stage 3, and again, he's playing that same way in Stage 4. So Toronto's looking good, man. They really are. I think they are definitely the second best team in the league, and they are definitely the team with the best shot to take down FaZe. We're going to see how they do on LAN. I mean, they don't have a track record of LAN success on this team like some teams do, but regardless, they still have a track record of insane talent. There's no denying that. So I think this team's a sleeper. I'm not saying they're going to win the major. Of course, you have to favor FaZe, but I think Toronto's being slept on a little bit. I would not be shocked whatsoever if they come out and they win this major, and Cammy for sure would be a big reason for that. He's been great all season long in that flex role, and he's just playing really well for Toronto, and it's showing in their team success. So that's going to do it for this top 5 video. If you enjoyed, don't forget to leave a like down below. Leave a comment as well with your thoughts on the players I chose and maybe why you would choose somebody else. Let me know. I'd love to hear it. And subscribe to the channel as well if you want to see more top 5 videos and other videos from me in the future. I appreciate all of that. It does mean a lot to me. So I hope you enjoyed the video. Hope you have a good rest of your day. And I'll talk to you guys in the next video.